So our next speaker is Robert Scoble. This is going to be really fun. For those who don't know him, he's a prolific writer and thinker and technologist. And he's also a very sought-after business strategist, especially for startups. So at Rackspace, I love this job description. His job is to, quote, go and learn what's happening on the bleeding edge of the internet, and then go share that out to everybody on G+, I'm sure, maybe a couple other social networks occasionally. So he has literally written the book on the subjects that we were talking about today in our session. His new book, which I highly recommend, Age of Context, Mobiles, Sensors, Data, and the Future of Privacy. So let's give a warm round to Robert Scoble.
How you doing?
Thanks.
So it was interesting listening to Dave's talk because it's sort of what I started recognizing about a year ago or 18 months ago. And it ended up in products like this Oakley Airwave, which has a built-in computer from a company up in Vancouver. And this computer has several sensors on it and shows the hang time of your jump while you're skiing, shows you where on the mountain you are. It shows you where your family is if they have an Android or an iPhone with the Oakley app on it. And it's pretty cool. But really what I started noticing when I was interviewing startups and innovators at companies was 5 separate things that are coming together. And what are the things? It's sensors. So we're seeing the amount of sensors go up exponentially and the cost of the sensors going down exponentially. And that's going to change our world. And here we visited an R&D lab in Cork, Ireland, where they're building sensors onto gloves to study how surgeons work and stuff like that. We're seeing a new kind of mobile coming along, not just iPhones and Android phones, but wearable computers. This Epiphany eyewear is developed here by 2 kids at Stanford, and they're putting a camera into the eyewear. And of course, you've seen the Fitbits and the Fuel Bands and the Misfit Shines up here. The third thing is we're seeing an exponential rise in location data. And anytime you see an exponential rise in something, you know that businesses can be built on top of that. And of course, we're seeing Foursquare and Facebook check-ins, and Waze just got bought by Google for $1.3 billion, and on and on. And fourth thing is social data continues to go up exponentially. Twitter today has a 500 million tweets per day, which is pretty mind-blowing for a 7-year-old company. And I kept seeing around the valley and other places all sorts of innovation in data. This is not Oracle's world anymore. We're seeing companies being built on top of MongoDB, and we're seeing new kinds of database companies like DataSift that's taking the Firehose feed out of Twitter and doing things with it. You add these 5 things together, and we're getting a new kind of software, a new human-machine interface. Google is working on a new contextual operating system that's going to know whether you're walking, whether you're running, whether you're in a meeting, whether you're skiing, whether you're driving, whether you're shopping. And it's going to report that up to the applications and to your services that you're going to build over the next few years. Here's one of the things I've noticed for humans. There's 2 things that this new contextual operating system is going to do for us. Is it's going to give us a highly personalized product and world. This Oakley ski goggle has my data in it, and if I give it to you, it's not yours, it's mine, right? It's very, very personalized to me. And we're seeing this as a trend throughout society. Here's Shoes of Prey in Australia, and they're building custom shoes with millions of combinations. You saw the Moto X phone get announced, and they can build hundreds of combinations of the phone with even your name etched on it. The second thing it means for humans is we're already seeing a new kind of software, an anticipatory software. If I can stalk you for a month, right, and follow you around and learn, do you go to church on Sunday? Where's your favorite places to eat? What kind of TV do you watch? And on and on. If I get to really learn you, I can then become your assistant, and I can start guessing what you're going to need next. And Google now is already doing this for us. It told me I was running late for this meeting, right? For businesses, it means 2 things as well. We're going to see everything about everything. So if you're running a business and you don't yet see everything about everything, you're not yet ready for this next stage. Think about Uber. Travis, who runs Uber, can see every employee, every customer, and where they're standing, every transaction, every piece of inventory, everything about his business he can see in his mobile phone. He can see everything about everything. And this it has deep implications for how we are going to run our company. You know, when I worked at Microsoft and I work at Rackspace, I'm reviewed every 6 months. And that's a political and imperfect process. But every Uber driver is rated in real time by you, right? If you don't like your driver, you rate him a 1, and eventually he gets fired if he keeps getting 1s. By the way, each driver is rating you as well. You didn't know that, did you? It's a contextual age. We're going to know everything about everything. So if you barf in the car, you're going to get rated 1, and you're not going to get picked up. And the second thing it means for business is it means that you're going to need to know your customer in very deep detail, 100 times more detail than you know today. I live in Half Moon Bay, right by the Half Moon Bay Ritz, and they have 4 computers that run that property. They have an open table computer, they have a spa finder computer that runs the spa, they have a computer that runs the main hotel, and a cheaper computer that runs the cheap restaurant. None of which really talk to each other, and certainly they don't go out to Foursquare or Facebook or Twitter to gather that information together. That's starting to change, and it's about to change in a big way. So this is Christy Wells. She started the Social Media Club. She's talking to Paloma Faith, who just played her first concert. She liked her on her iPhone, on Facebook. And then Paloma Faith can see the audience change right in front of her using an app called Audience FM. You know, when I go to the Ritz, they don't know much about me. And I know this because every time I tweet from there, the social media team chimes in and says, hey, thank you for coming to the Ritz. I hope you have a good time. Great on you for having a social media team. Every company does today. But very quickly, you have a conversation with them and they go tone deaf. It's very clear they have no idea where I'm sitting in the property, what I'm drinking, who I'm with, what my lifetime value as a customer is to them. They have no clue. And when I go to London, like I just did, and go to the Ritz property there, they have no idea who I am. And we'll talk about how that's going to change in a second. Cities are radically changing. Dave just talked a little bit about cities. You know, my studio is in San Francisco, and I noticed that the employees are now getting their groceries delivered right to their mobile phone. And if they forget their their power supply, they go to eBay now and have it delivered in less than an hour. These services only work in urban centers. I live in Half Moon Bay. These services don't work there. In San Jose, if you use an app called City Source, you can report potholes to the government. So cities are radically changing because of the devices that we're carrying around, and Dave was right on about that. You know, I shot this video of the self-driving car. I was one of the first guys to take video of it, and I had no idea what I was sitting next to. But cars are radically changing. At the Consumer Electronics Show this year, I met with executives from General Motors, and their cars are tweeting just like those cows are tweeting. And by the way, that's really cool if you're a parent, because if your car tweets when it turns on, you know that the car is where it's supposed to be. And several of the execs have actually outfitted their cars with that kind of capability. The Chevy Volt that my friend just bought, Andy just bought, it already generates 200 megabytes per second of data. It's a lot of data. Most of it's thrown away because most of it's like for airbag sensors and stuff like that. But the car is an API now. He can write apps that talk to the car and do all sorts of things. I interviewed a kid who wrote a Google Glass app for his dad's Tesla, and he can say, "Okay, Glass, open my moonroof," and it opens, or "Okay, Glass, where is my car?" and it'll lead him there. So this is changing what developers and innovators are able to do with cars. It's radically changing marketing, because no longer do I have to advertise to all of you to hope that I get to the few buyers or the potential buyers. You know, I used to run a camera store here in Silicon Valley, and I had to advertise in the San Jose Mercury News and spend $20,000 on a newspaper ad, hoping I hit a few buyers. Today, with a mobile phone, I know your context. I know your intent, and Google certainly is studying that and is going to study that deeper. Let's talk about some of the ways that marketing is going to change from that broadcast to pinpoint marketing. This is a 3D sensor made by an Israeli company called PrimeSense. Rumored right now that Apple's going to buy this company, but they put it over the aisle at a Walmart, and they can see, the sensor is so sensitive it can see when your hand is heading toward a box of Cheerios, and it can display things like, hey, don't buy that box of Cheerios, it's bad for you. Or hey, if you take 3 of those boxes, you'll get 10% off, or whatever, play some games with you. It is really freaky stuff, and we'll talk a little bit about privacy in a second. But and it's happening. And I was just talking at a privacy conference, and one of the sessions was an argument about what the store should say at the front when you walk into one of these smart stores. Vintank up here is a company up in Napa that is studying everything somebody says about wine on social media. Today, 1.1 million tweets per day are made that have something to do with wine, and they build a profile on you if you say I love Sutter Home or whatever, and they start studying your context. They are now putting geofences around each of the wineries, particularly in Napa. So let's say I own the Paradox winery up in Napa, and let's say you go to the Camus winery before coming to me, and you Instagram a photo there, and let's say you went to the Sutter Home, well, maybe it's the other way around. But I know something about wine. Sutter Home is a $10 a bottle wine customer, and Camus is a $200 a bottle of wine customer. So that when you both come into my place, I'm going to treat you differently, right? And this is already happening. You think it's not, but Castello di Amorosa winery up in Napa, the big castle, has a sign. Are you an Instagram user? And they put you on a different tour if you say yes. They're going to know that the sign's going to go away pretty quickly because they're going to know that you're an Instagram user before you even get there, right? How is this new world going to happen? It's going to happen because of these low-energy Bluetooth radios. How many people have seen a low-energy Bluetooth radio or have one with them? Yeah, a couple. This is actually a pretty advanced audience. I've given this talk six times this week to people at Salesforce and and 500 startups, and most people say no. These radios are $10. They spit a number into the air every minute, and you can turn up the amount of times if you want, but once a second is fine. And they run for 2 years on a coin battery. And my iPhone can tell how close it is to one of those radios. So if I had a radio underneath this table, I could say, oh, you're on stage right now. And as I get closer, I can do things like payments or a new kind of social network. Mark Zuckerberg better worry about these radios. How many people have an iPhone with iOS, new Android phone or an iPhone? It's going to do stuff as you walk around the park. So as you go closer to one of the vendors, it's going to change what's displayed on the screen. And it's going to allow this new kind of pinpoint marketing. Think about a new camera. I talked to Nick, who runs GoPro, because GoPro started 200 yards from my house. And he can now change a camera from just gathering pixels to gathering context, gathering those Wi-Fi radios or those Bluetooth radios and putting your names automatically into a picture, grabbing what the weather is like today, grabbing stock prices, grabbing other things from the internet and putting them into the picture to make it easier to search and to make the picture different. I'm soon gonna wear a galvanic skin response sensor. I was wearing one at the NextWeb conference. They told the guy who invented it how nervous I was in real time, and he was able to see that. Right? So think about, if you're a GoPro customer, you're a skier, surfer, windsurfer kind of thing, right? You can actually show how hard your heart was racing, how nervous you were, how scared you were. That's context that makes the photos more fun, right? True. It's changing every product. You put a sensor on a standard pair of headphones. Now the headphone knows where you're aimed. So now you can put the band out in one place instead of moving the band every time you move your head and do all sorts of fun things. It means new kinds of circuitry. At Park down the street where Steve Jobs ripped the Macintosh off of, well, he had to pay $1 million in stock, but pretty much got away with murder there. These guys are printing circuitry with an inkjet printer. 50 transistors and a little radio on anything. So those cows, the milk cartons, whatever you want, you're going to print circuitry on. And this is in the R&D labs right now, but it'll come out. As these sensors come down in price, as this circuitry comes out, it changes even products that we already have. Cops have breathalyzers already. They cost $600,000, something like that. These new ones from a company here is called Breathometer. They're $49 now. And my brother owns a bar. He's going to put 10 of these at the bar and change what he can do. He can have a new kind of drinking game, for instance. And Dave talked about the swallowable pills. They're being built in Ireland at the same R&D lab, and I saw a couple of them. They go into you and transmit all sorts of data. The cameras, by the way, that they have on them are 1 millimeter by 1 millimeter, so think about what the NSA could do with those. And that leads to a whole new kind of privacy discussion. We are going to be stalked in a new way very quickly, and this stuff is going to get into our brains very fast. At the Next Web, when I was wearing that galvanic skin response sensor, it not only knew how nervous I was, but the guy who invented it started talking to me, and we were in Amsterdam, and he started talking about the red light district, and my brain spiked up. And I'm like, oh, wait a second, that's a new privacy problem. The Google Glass I'm usually wearing watches my eyes and can tell whether I'm sober or drunk, right? It's all sorts of fun stuff coming. So that is my 15-minute talk. I can do this for a couple hours, which I have. Thank you very much. This gives you a little taste.